Hello ladies and gentlemen, today we are doing another good, bad, and ugly, this time on the second generation Toyota MR2, or the SW20 Toyota MR2. It was suggested, so now I'm going to do it. If you want to see a car, leave it in the comments. Anyway guys, before we get into it, I really want to remind you that on Monday, September 20th, that's in like 4 days now, SmoothStance hats, shirts, and shorts are all going to be going live. So please stay up to date on that. Follow me on Instagram if you really want to know exactly when it drops. And yeah, let's get right into it. So the SW20 MR2 was produced from 1989 to 1999, which is really cool, 10 years, but was only available in North America from the years 1991 to 1991. Don't ask me why they do that though with these old Japanese sports cars. Make them a couple years in Japan only, then they bring them to the States. Don't ask me why they do that, but it's just what they do. They were actually mid-engine cars, which a lot of people probably know by now, and they were rear-wheel drive, which gave them the name. Mid-engine, rear-wheel drive, two-seater is a two-part because they are a two-seater, which caused for a lot of cornering issues for inexperienced drivers. Cough cough, snap oversteer, look it up, it's bad. They were extremely small, weighing in at only 2,600 pounds, and since they only had 2 seats, they were on the right path to be an ultimate sports car. They also had freaking pop-up headlights, which is always nice to see. God, I love those. It just makes the car's body's lines just flow so much better. And they came in only 2 different body styles, alright? They came in the 2-door coupe, which is the one that people mainly want, or a T-top, which just deleted the top 2 roof pieces but gave it this little line through the middle to give it that sports car effect, but without losing the aerodynamics, which is still seen in a lot of supercars today. Like, people do that still to this day, cut out the middle roof piece and give it a spider style look, and it just looks really cool. And it's really cool that, you know, MR2 played a big part in pushing that concept forward. In America, they came in only 2 different trim options, and we're only going to be talking about the American market because most of my subscribers are from America. I'm from America. It just makes it easier. It came with the normal MR2 or the MR2 Turbo, which, you guessed it, had a turbo. The naturally aspirated MR2 came with a 2.2-liter inline-4 that made only 130 horsepower and 130 foot-pounds of torque. But then the big brother Mr. MR2 Turbo option came with a 2-liter turbocharged inline-4 that bumped that power up to 200 horsepower and 200 foot-pounds of torque, making it easily the better option, but also a bit scarier option since they already had the snap oversteer with only 130 horsepower. Now they have 200 horsepower. The snap oversteer is going to bite you a little bit harder, and so this is a little sketchy. Go with the naturally aspirated one if you're worried about snap oversteer. They came with either a 4-speed automatic or a 5-speed automatic or a 5-speed manual, which is obviously the choice that everybody wants because manual is cool and is a lot more fun to drive. And yes, like I said before, they were rear-wheel drive and mid-engined, which is extremely different than lots of sports cars out there, so I just thought I should mention it. Now it's time to get into the modifying scene, and since there's so little MR2s out there, especially ones being modified, it's kind of hard to say what they're actually used for, but based off of what I see, I've been in the car community for quite a bit, I would say they are mainly built for track cars. Like I said before, they do have snap oversteer, making it extremely hard to drive, but if you're a good enough driver to actually handle the snap oversteer, then they perform extremely well. So people that actually know how to drive love to throw some functional aero and stiffer suspension, maybe some bigger tires, some grippier tires, and they call it a day, then go tear it up at the autocross tournaments because, like I said, they have 200 horsepower in a car that only weighs 2,600 pounds. They already have the speed down, they just need to be able to stay planted. That was MR2's problem. So if they start pumping these little aerodynamic parts on it, making the suspension better, and all the just keeping the car more stable, it becomes a great car. They are seen quite a bit as show cars too, since they have extremely nice body lines, but that's less likely. Show cars are weird nowadays. Show cars are mainly like Civics and things that are kind of like daily drivers that are just bagged, and show cars can be anything, but you don't really see these too much. It's weird. Show cars, it's just a weird topic. And drifting and drag racing both are almost never seen. Since they're mid-engined, they're hard to keep sideways. They like to spin out, and that's not good, despite what you may think when drifting. You don't want a car that's going to want to spin out. You're just going to want a car that's going to want to break loose. And since they have such a small engine bay, it's also hard to get any power out of them, so people just go with the more common options for drag racing or drifting, since there's so many better options for both of them than an MR2. But for track days, an MR2 is an amazing choice. Now it's time to get into the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we start off with the good because I'm the happiest man in the world. And right off the bat is the looks are absolutely timeless. Now, there are some cars out there, my 350Z, that look good, but they get outstyled within a couple of years. Like, let's face it, there are some cars out there that were like, oh yeah, they look cool, but to a normal person, they're just like, well, they look like an old car now. Like, for example, the Chaser or like a Laurel, or even the S13 240s. To a normal person, those don't look cool anymore. But to normal people, these cars still look really, really good. They had that retro mid-engine. They looked like a little Ferrari, and that'll never get old with pretty much anybody. Next is they are cheap, as long as you don't go for a turbocharged model. This one's a bit iffy since they're so old, but they still are found under 5K quite often. It's just the hard part about actually finding them is the fact that you have to find it. There's so little of them, but when you do find them and when they actually are for sale, they're usually under $5,000, which is a really good deal for these cars. Next is they are a Toyota, meaning that they are quite reliable. Now keep in mind, this is still a sports car, so it won't be as reliable as a freaking Camry, but for a sports car, they are pretty damn good. Toyota, just keep doing what you're doing with making those reliable engines. We like that. Next is they have pop-up headlights. Who doesn't like that? I have to throw it in there. Next is they also came in a convertible, which actually looks really cool, which is surprising, so I thought I should put it in the good. Usually people, when they do convertible options, mess it up. Next is it only has 2 seats, so you really do get that sports car feel when driving one. And on top of getting that like sports car feel, since it has the 2 seats, another great part about the car is they have the typical like Toyota sports car interior, meaning that it's very like driver oriented, which makes you feel like you're piloting a freaking spaceship. This is seen in the Supra too, and people love that, myself included. Like all the knobs, all the dials, everything's like kind of tilted towards you, and it looks really cool when you're driving it. It feels like you're piloting a spaceship. Like I said, like it's just awesome. And finally, for the good, is they're super unique. Like, not only in the sense that not a lot of people own them, but the fact that they're dirt cheap, mid-engined, rear-wheel drive sports cars. There's no other options like that. The only options I can think about would be the Fiero and the Porsche Boxster, at least for the exact same price range. But besides those two, there's no other option out there, and the Porsche Boxster is not as cheap as an MR2, and the Fiero is, but they're older too, and they're going to have the same issues that a Fiero is going to have, so I mean that an MR2 is going to have, so it's really up to you between those two. Now it's time to get into the bad, which are things that are just take it or leave it. If you enjoy it, that's great. If you don't enjoy it, that's not great. And first off is the exhaust note isn't really there for me. They sound like a little 4-banger, but that's because it is a little 4-banger. But in all honesty, who doesn't like those anyway? All right, 4-bangers sound pretty good nowadays. I don't know. These ones just don't hit right for me. I'll let you decide though. Here's a clip. Next is the cheap plastics. This is becoming a trend with my good, bad, and ugly videos. I talk about cheap plastics pretty much all the time because I do a lot of old cars. But yeah, they aren't the best quality interior-wise, which you have to expect when buying one of these old Japanese sports cars. But some people still to this day think that they're going to get a great, classy interior with no cracks or no creaks, and that's not going to happen. Next is, since they are older cars, the odds of something going wrong on them is much higher than lots of newer cars. That's going to happen though, and you should expect that. It does not mean that the car is unreliable. It's still reliable as long as you take good care of it. It's just things are going to break. Over time, things break. It happens. And finally, for bad is bad visibility. When daily driving, at least. This one is super duper obvious, but I just thought I should put it out there in case anyone doesn't think about it. If you look at the back window of these cars, you should be able to tell right off the bat that you will not be seeing much out of them. It's gonna happen, so don't expect to be able to daily drive this all around and be like, oh yeah, I can see everything. You're not gonna. Now it's time to get into the ugly, which are things that you just cannot lie are bad about the car. And first off is the obvious snap oversteer issue. Like I said before, this is controllable if you have driving experience, but for someone new to driving or somebody that has a bad history driving, this is a big issue and you're going to crash. Do not overlook this. Snap oversteer is something that's very very dangerous to new drivers, and it could cause very, very bad accidents. So do your research, make sure that you can drive a car, make sure you know when you should be giving this car gas or not giving this car gas, and you should be okay. But like I said, either way, I would still wait until it's like your second car to buy one of these. Next is working on it is going to be a pain in the rectum. Since the engine is in the back of the car, you can't just like take off the fenders and bumpers to get at it easier, which you can with most cars since they're in the front. And on top of that, it's pretty crammed where it actually is, since it's in the back and it's such a tiny little area. Getting at certain things are going to be a pain. It's not going to be fun working on these cars, but your smiles will overrule that in the end. I'm just letting you know though that it's not going to be a good time. And finally, for the bad, only 3 things today, which shows you that it's a good car. Finally would be daily driving is almost completely a no-go. They are oversteer heavy and they will break more often than many other cars simply due to them being old. Like I said before, not saying the car's unreliable, it is reliable, just they're older now. On top of that, they are a really unique sports car that not many people have anymore, so parts will be a good penny. All right, it's not going to be the cheapest car when you have to replace something in it. Daily driving is not a great idea in one of these cars. If you live in a snowy area and you daily drive one of these, I want you sir are a legend. You deserve to go to heaven when you pass away, because that is unheard of. Like, that's really good. So but either way though, if you're thinking of daily driving one of these, I would stay away from them. So finally, do I think you should buy this car? Well, it honestly depends. If this is going to be your first car, then no. You need to learn how to drive first before getting behind the wheel of one of these. They are unforgiving and they're really bad choices for new drivers. But yes, like I said before, I've said it 100 times now, but I'm going to say it again. If you have driving experience and you really want a quick little like canyon carver or an autocross machine, then this is one of, if not the best choice out there for a bunch of different reasons. It's too much to go into right now, but there's a lot of reasons why this is a great choice. Lightweight, rear-wheel drive, very good handling wise, as long as you can control snap oversteer. It's a good car. All right, it's a good car. Just take it from me. But either way, even if you are an experienced driver, I still don't think that it's a good option for a daily driver. There's a lot of other cars out there, guys, that are better options for daily driving. And if you're going the drifting route, just stay away from them. There's really no reason trying to make a car work when there's plenty of other options out there that are much better and just as cheap. The same thing goes with drag racing. There's a lot of better options out there than an MR2. I understand the whole like people like to be different, and that's cool. You can do that if you want. But if you're not trying to go like different and you're just trying to save money, don't, because it's gonna save you a lot of stress, headaches, and honestly money in the long run if you just buy one of the more common options for either of these 2 things. But guys, that is the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, you know what to do. Like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more content. Thanks. Anyway, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what other car I should do down in the comments. And don't forget, Monday, 4 days from now, September 20th, www.smoothstance.com/shop. The first drop is going live, and I cannot wait. We have red shirts, white shirts, black shorts, black hats. Boom! And they're all pretty cheap too. Honestly, that's one thing I really wanted to stay by is cheap. Okay, I mean the quality of them isn't cheap, but I want them to be cheap for you guys to buy, just because I know personally that I hate it when I go on a website expecting to buy something and it's like 40 bucks for a t-shirt, and I'm like, okay, that's a little out of the way. But so it's cheap. Maybe get it for Christmas. Christmas is coming. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Das Vidania. Have a nice day.